Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to Breaking Points. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Happy New Year, beautiful people out there. It's great to be back, and we will be back fully in the studio next week, which we are very excited for. Okay, in the show today, there's actually a lot happening in Washington today. There's a big battle for Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy has the most votes, but he doesn't have enough votes, and it is totally unclear. Like a lot of times in Washington, there's suspense, but it's kind of fake suspense. This time, literally no one knows what is going to happen. So we'll break all of that down for you. We also have some updates on one of those new members of Congress, George Santos. I've been sort of obsessed with the story. This dude lied about literally everything in his life. Now he is under a brand new investigation. So we'll bring you those details. We also have, at long last, after many years of anticipation and speculation, Trump tax returns. We'll tell you what's in there and the way that the media has spun this, which is very interesting as well. We've got big Epstein news, and we have a major fail from CNN that they started the year with. I've also got a report from the billionaire and boss class. Saagar is taking a look at the total debacle from Southwest Airlines and Mayor Pete's failures with regards to that. But before we get to any of that, Saagar, live show.
Live show. Go ahead and put it up there on the screen. Austin, Texas, February 3rd. We are coming to the Paramount Theater. The tickets are actually almost sold out, so I highly recommend that you go ahead and grab them. I was just in Austin for New Year's. I took a little drive-by of the theater. It's a stunningly beautiful venue. I met some of you beautiful people as well in Austin, Texas. And I can tell you, Krystal, we've got some awesome fans that are on the ground there already. Many of them were mentioning and talking about how excited they were for the live show. So go ahead and join those people. Texas people and others just going to be the last one for a little while, and tickets are scarcely available now. Highly recommend that you come. We have a great show planned for you all. But with that, let's get to actually a shocking development in Washington, some genuinely suspenseful and possibly history-making news.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so today there's expected to be a vote on Speaker of the House, and Kevin McCarthy, Republicans are taking control of the House. Kevin McCarthy has long been seen as the leading candidate, but he needs 218 votes. And since Republicans only took the House by a very slim margin, he can only afford to lose 4 votes. So remember that, 4 votes. That's the number that he can lose. Fortunately for him, there are 5 members of the Republican caucus who are calling themselves Never Kevin. They have vowed to never vote for Kevin McCarthy, and so far they do not seem to be budging. Let's go ahead and put this tear sheet up on the screen from Roll Call that breaks all of this down. So the headline there, it says Speaker race headed toward dramatic floor election. Here's the lead that they wrote out here. They said whether or not Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker under the incoming House Republican majority, the January 3rd floor election to determine who will take the gavel from Pelosi is poised to be the most dramatic in a century. A small faction of Never Kevin Republicans is threatening to ensure McCarthy is denied the 218 votes needed to win the Speaker's election, but a larger group of Republicans who have pledged to vote for only Kevin are making clear they will not support any other returning members of Congress for the role. The 2 positions are seemingly irreconcilable, and members on both sides of the standoff predict the Speaker's election will require multiple ballots for the first time since 1923. So you see the problem here. You've got Kevin McCarthy. He's got a pretty hard group that says they will only vote for him. But meanwhile, you have this other smaller contingent that says they will absolutely never vote for him. There is no one as of this morning who has the 218 votes needed. And so it's very uncertain how this is ultimately all going to unfold. You've actually had, Saagar, a couple of moderate Republicans who have floated that they may be willing to work with Democrats to get a kind of consensus candidate to get to that 218 vote threshold. One person who's been floated for that is Fred Upton, who is a moderate Republican. He's out of the House after this session. Now, there's nothing in the law that says that the Speaker of the House has to be a sitting member of Congress. That's just the way it's been traditionally done. So that's one potential alternative out there. It's just a very up in the air right now how it all goes. And the last thing I'll add, and then I'm interested in your take, is McCarthy has been really trying to appease this group of 5 hard-nosed. There's a larger group. There's an additional 9 who have sent a letter saying that they're very concerned. There's the whip count this morning suggests that there may be about 18 members of the Republican caucus who are right now no votes. He's made some changes to the rules to try to win over these folks. And so far, it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. Let's go ahead and put that one on the screen, the letter of the so-called nine. So what you can see here, we have Representative Scott Perry, Paul Gosar, Andy Ogallis, Anna Paulina, Luna from Florida, Eli Crane, Chip Roy, Dan Bishop, Andy Harris, Andrew Clyde. So the reason why those names are important is they do generally run the gamut. I guess the one thing that unites all of them is being quote unquote anti-establishment, but you can read that in a lot of different ways. That can mean Tea Party Republican. That can also mean somebody who is really just wants to make the headlines. The reason why I think that this is the most important is that the lack of certainty opens up all kinds of insane and interesting possibilities. We should remember the last time that the speakership was actually in question was when John Boehner actually resigned the House. Absolutely nobody predicted that it would be Paul Ryan, and it was Paul Ryan. That shows us that out of this could emerge somebody who really many Americans may not have ever heard of. I guess Paul Ryan was a little bit more well-established. The Fred Upton category is very much in there. I believe it would be one of the first or one of the only times in American history that somebody who's not currently serving in the House of Representatives would be the speaker. We should reiterate that as well. I've heard previously calls from MAGA Republicans to actually make Trump the Speaker of the House. That's one way that they wanted to. I mean, I guess it would put him in the official line of succession since he's a private citizen right now. I want to underscore just for everyone that the chaos of the situation, the very fast moving negotiations that are happening mean that Kevin McCarthy very well could be the Speaker of the House. In fact, probably, I don't know, he's got the best, I wouldn't say more likely than not, but he's got the best shot of any person who is currently in the government right now. But as we have all learned through, and we really have to reach back through very long ago in our history, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 12th, and all of those types of ballots, things can go in a crazy and very unexpected direction. It's a really fun for me because this is showing us the crumbling of the party infrastructure at the very top of the Republican Party. People should not think that this is only a MAGA, like a MAGA revolt against Kevin McCarthy. This is longstanding, basically party crumbling at the top for the GOP. And personally, I'm enjoying the chaos, Krystal.
Yeah, same. I mean, McCarthy was in line for the speakership before, and he kind of blew himself up that time because he admitted that the Benghazi hearings were just an attempt at like political attack on Hillary Clinton. And so that kind of sank his bid last time around. But I think there's a sense from that seems fairly justifiable to me that the dude doesn't really stand for anything. He's just a climber. You can't really trust him. And so that's why you see a fairly broad ideological array against him. And then you also have the complicating factor of, you have some of the hard MAGA folks in Congress who are against McCarthy. But of course, McCarthy himself was actually endorsed by Trump. So that's led to this whole falling out between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz being on the other side of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and MTG really forcefully making the case for McCarthy. So it has been a very interesting spectacle to watch unfold. And the lines are not entirely clear or consistent in the way that they've been drawn between these two camps. Some other names that have been mentioned besides Fred Upton, another person that was mentioned is Steve Scalise as a potential, if McCarthy fails and it looks like there's no way to get him across the finish line, maybe they put Scalise up as a potential consensus pick, but it's incredibly hard to say what happens. The other question is, how hard are these Never Kevin votes ultimately? Are they just posturing so that they can get more concessions out of the rulemaking process? The thing that they really wanted was to make it easier to basically depose the speaker if they were unhappy with them. They've effectively already won that rule change, but then there's questions over whether the rest of the caucus will accept that rule change and vote for it, and the rule change vote happens after the speaker vote. So just a lot of uncertainty in this. There was a good thread from one of the reporters at Politico's Playbook laying out the difficulty of the math problem. And I want to take the time to go through this because I think it's a good explanation of exactly where things stand for McCarthy right now. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. So they say here, news in Playbook, McCarthy's math problem is actually worse than it seems. It's not just the 5 hard no, never Keviners. and 9 fence sitters who panned the rule changes as not good enough. One told me some undecideds won't support him even if he gives them everything they ask. That's a huge problem for McCarthy, something McCarthy allies have worried about for weeks, that some of these members are not really winnable because of the long-held animosity they've had for the GOP leader. Key quote, they say, the problem is people don't trust Kevin McCarthy and a number won't vote for him. This undecided lawmaker told me the list of demands that we offered was not for guaranteed support, but rather the kinds of things that might move some of his detractors. So pointing out there in the first part, they offered this list of demands, but they didn't even say, like, if you give me these demands, if you concede, then we're all going to vote for you. So that puts them in a difficult position. Let's go ahead to the next screen. They say this is why McCarthy dodged questions last night about whether his concession on the motion to vacate got him the votes. That's the motion that would, make it easier basically to depose the speaker. It didn't. Even if he goes down to a one-person trigger, he may not get there if this well-placed source is right. 3 other signs of problems for McCarthy. 1, the undecideds are already preparing to deflect blame to him. If he goes down, he'd like it to be our problem. It's his problem. The real question should be, why is he dragging the country and the Congress through this? 2, anti-McCarthy members are already talking to GOP centrists about a unity candidate. You have to be responsible and say, well, if he's not going to get the votes, what alternatives are out there? There's no agreement. Centrists continue to be McCarthy's strongest supporters, but the fact that convos between conservatives and moderates are happening are notable. 3, a small subset of McCarthy backers are privately wary of this fight he plans to wage this week to get the gavel, with multiple votes distracting from the GOP takeover. The more ballots he calls up, the more he could lose his own base of support. And the last quote they have here is that we're supposed to be hitting the ground running here, but instead it's just a big belly flop. Believe me, it's not just members of the Freedom Caucus who are aggravated. So Saagar, one of the key points there is it's not, you have these different ideological factions in the Republican Party, but they're not completely at odds. And this is what's really dangerous for McCarthy. If you have the hard right members in conversations with the centrist members who are just interested in sort of getting through this vote and getting someone as a consensus pick in, up to 218 votes to take the speaker's gavel, well, that's how you could very clearly end up with someone other than Kevin McCarthy, because, if you would unite those factions together behind someone, then you end up in a completely different situation. So hard to see how this is all going to go down, but certainly as of this morning, Kevin McCarthy is not really particularly close to having the 218 votes that he would need to actually become speaker.
Yeah, I really did not think it would come this close down to the wire. I really believe that some of those concessions from Kevin McCarthy on the rule changes and others, we're really talking about the motion to vacate, the ability to just bring legislation to the floor with just 15 or so members, which itself would be a huge blow to McCarthy and would already stop his speakership, or would that really humble his speakership. Now, it doesn't even seem like that's enough. I want to just underscore to everybody how historical this is. If Kevin McCarthy fails on the first ballot, it will be the first time since the Congress of 1923 in exactly 100 years that the majority party has not had a nominee on the very first ballot. Now, what happens here is that right now, the math still can change. We should remember that given absentees, voting present, you don't necessarily need to hit 218. There have actually been a couple of instances, 6 specifically, where they have had speakers elected with less than 218 votes, which is exactly a majority plus 1. There have actually been 14 instances where it took multiple ballots to choose a new speaker. 13 of them were before the Civil War. So this would be the first time in 100 years that it would take more than one ballot, possibly, to elect a new speaker. It would be really the first one since the Civil War, post-Civil War era. And the last time that it took a long time in order to get a speaker, Krystal, was 1855, over the course of two months, with 133 ballots to elect the speaker during that Congress.
Oh my God, that's insane. I didn't know about that. That's amazing. Well, last thing I'll say here, guys, is Counterpoints is going to be moving to Wednesdays. So they're going to have a show for you tomorrow to break all of this down. Ryan knows way more about like congressional procedure and inside baseball stuff than basically anyone. So he'll be able to break all of this down really well. It'll be great to have Emily's perspective also on these different ideological factions and what they are saying and what they're thinking. She's also very well sourced within the Republican caucus. So definitely check that out to see how this all ultimately unfolds. We will be watching it very closely. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.